Hello and good morning, everyone. I'm Shashi from the Samrit Bharat Foundation, and I very warmly welcome you all to this discussion on the Tryst. We are planning to start a video series where we will invite prominent scholars to present their work in a simple and accessible manner. And we are planning to start this video series with Aditya Mukherjee sir. Aditya Mukherjee sir is a retired professor of contemporary history from the Center for Historical Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Sir is an author of multiple books and academic articles. And apart from his academic work, Sir has also been very actively engaged in the struggle against the falsification of history, which is in vogue amongst right-leaning historians and circles. So, Sir, thank you for joining us for this discussion.
Thank you, Shashi.
Today's discussion will primarily revolve around the freedom struggle and the various dimensions and dialectics involved in it. So we often talk about the secular and plural foundations of the national movement, particularly of the mass movements led by Gandhiji. How do you think that the secular and plural foundations that we talk about, how were they constructed to ensure a unity amongst a population which was so diverse? There were so many fault lines, and yet Gandhiji managed to, bring about a unity in the struggle.
I'll make a slight change or a correction to what you said. Surely Gandhiji played a very major role, but it is the Indian national movement from its inception that it imagined a nation very differently from the way nations were imagined the world over. And that is why all that you said, that how is it in a diverse society with multiple languages, religions, castes, you cannot have a more varied society as India is anywhere in the world. How is it that a nation could be formed? You see, the early nationalists were aware of this. And they therefore, Surendra Banerjee, in one of his earliest works in the 19th century, last quarter of the 19th century, said, India is a nation in the making. That was the title of his book, India, a Nation in the Making. That you're trying to make a nation out of a diverse society, right? The important thing is, it is not only Gandhiji. The entire national movement, the consensus of the national movement, the ideas, the consensus of ideas which Rabindranath Tagore called the idea of India. From the beginning, it was that India will be a nation which will celebrate diversity. Now, why is it important? Because it was unique in world history. When nation states emerged anywhere in the world, they emerged primarily, as you know, in Europe, in the 18th, 19th centuries, 17th, 18th, 19th. They emerged as nations with one religion, one language. Catholic France, not even Christian France. Catholic France, Protestant England. Germany is formed by the unification of Germany, German-speaking people coming together. Unification of Italy on the basis of language. That is why the British said, when our national movement started, they said, how can you be a nation? India, they said, is a geographical expression. It cannot be a nation. Now, the Indian national movement, on the contrast, as I said, in a unique manner, imagined the nation in a manner that it will celebrate diversity. More languages, more the religion, the better it is. And the result was the best Bengali poet, the greatest Urdu writer, the greatest Tamil thinker, were also the greatest nationalists. There was no contradiction. No, this was unique. So, Gandhiji and Nehru propagated this idea, brought it to the people, but the conception was there from the very beginning of the national movement, from the 1870s, 80s onwards. Even before the formation of the Indian National Congress in 1885, the modern national movement that emerged after the mutiny had this conception.
Thank you so much, sir. So you spoke about how Indian nationalism was unique in its, in its emergence and how it was propagated further by people like Nehruji and Gandhiji. So whenever one speaks about it, a charge is often flung by the right-wing circles that Gandhiji and others, they also engaged in what is called minority appeasement. So what is your view on this question, on this charge? Is it historically accurate?
No, it's obviously not. You see, people who are talking of the national movement, which was led by the Congress, as doing minority appeasement, the, lead, the primary leaders of the most prominent leaders were Gandhiji and Nehru. They are accusing them of doing minority appeasement. It is on that ground that Gandhiji was murdered. Remember that. The reasoning given was that he does Muslim appeasement, isn't it? Now, those who are making this charge are the ones who are attacking the minorities, permitting lynching, permitting open calls for their annihilation, for genocide, open, without punishment, right? And they're accusing the other side of doing appeasement. All that they're doing is being inclusive. Inclusiveness is not appeasement. The reason why they are so opposed to the Congress and to the national movement is because the communalists are the only, communalists and the loyalists were the only people who did not share this idea of India. Inclusive, secular, democratic, humane, kind, peaceful. These were the ideas, scientific. Now they are the only ones who did not share it. It is not Gandhi Nehru alone, as I've been insisting. The entire spectrum, from Dadabhai Naoroji, Tilak, Gokhale, Gandhi, Nehru, Bhagat Singh, revolutionaries were not part of the Congress. Subhash Bose, again not part of the Congress, but also broke out. There is a complete agreement on the whole spectrum. Everybody agreed, except the communalists and the loyalists. They do not agree with this conception. And therefore, they are accusing them of appeasement, this, that, and the other. This is not appeasement. The only way a nation can be built is if you carry everybody together. If you do not carry people together, then the nation itself is at threat, which is what their politics is causing today. And it is not me who's saying it. It's prominent journalists like Harish Khare, for example, mainstream journalist, been editor of many newspapers. He's asked the RSS people, he says, are you aware that what you're doing is leading towards a situation of civil war? You see, what does a civil war in a country mean? Break up, right? This is what the person who predicted, who runs this organization called Genocide Watch, Gregory Stanton. He is the one who predicted the genocide in Rwanda. Now, he says, he made this statement in the US Assembly, Senate, I'm forgetting where exactly, but in the US House, one of the US houses, he made the statement that the manner in which India is moving, we are likely to see one of the world's biggest genocide ever. So those who are accusing the other side of appeasement are doing something which will break up the nation. And to mistake carrying people with you as appeasement is a fundamental mistake. You see, democracy means carrying everybody together. Democracy is not about numbers. They are depending on numbers to destroy democracy. Do remember, Hitler also won by election. Just winning an election doesn't make you a Democrat. Trump has also won an election. But is his racist ideas, is his white supremacist ideas, is something acceptable to a democracy? Is it the way he's treating the press, the way he's treating opposition, the way he's treating universities? Is it acceptable to a democracy? It is not. There you will say it is not. But here, you do the same thing. You have a majority in numbers, and then you think it gives you the right to determine, to convert the minorities into second-rate citizens, which is their objective anyway. If you read the RSS founders, the biggest thinkers behind them, Savarkar and Golwalkar, for example, they clearly state Savarkar, in his presidential address to the Hindu Mahasabha, after having said that Hindus and Muslims are two antagonistic nations, mind you, this view first was created by the British in the 19th century. Before that, never was the Hindus and the Muslims considered antagonistic. If they were antagonistic, then why did they fight together to throw out the British in the mutiny? Isn't it? The question of antagonism on basis of religion had not arisen yet. The British bring it in. The communalists pick it up. Muslim League and Hindu Mahasabha and RSS. So Savarkar says Hindus and Muslims are two antagonistic nations. And the following year he says, no, that is not correct. Hindus are only the nation. Muslims are the community.
Yeah.
And then to explain it further, now listen to this, how interesting. To explain it, he says, just as in Germany, the Germans are the nation and the Jews are the community.
Yeah.
And he's saying it after the Jews have been annihilated. Millions of them have been killed. You're comparing the Muslims to the Jews?
Yeah.
And then you're accusing the other side of saying you're doing appeasement? I mean, this is shameful.
I think Savarkar also says that what happened to the Jews, they being the minority were driven away, something of that sort. I think.
No, they're being put in their place. Minority, I mean, as second-rate citizens,
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, sir. So, definitely we understand that, those who accuse the Indian National Congress and the movement of doing minority appeasement were themselves engaged in bashing the minorities, treating them as second-grade citizens. So, that we know, but regarding the freedom struggle itself, what were those, with communal proclivities, for instance, the RSS, what was their role in the struggle? Did they, as many people who are progressives, they accused that the RSS fundamentally, they did not participate in the struggle, they stayed aloof from the struggle altogether. So what is your view on this?
You see, they had no option. When the RSS is formed, the national movement already is existing. Mind you, 25 they are formed. National movement already has spent half a century, virtually, isn't it? It's a powerful national movement. The first non-cooperation movement has already occurred. The Swadeshi movement has already occurred. So the national movement has a conception. RSS is formed with a different conception of forming a Hindu nation. So how could they be part of the movement? So they, from the inception, were anti-Congress and were willing to join hands with the British to suppress the Congress, which they did. When the biggest movement in India against the British, the famous Quit India movement, 1942, was happening, the RSS and the Hindu Mahasabha were collaborating with the British. They were, in fact, not only collaborating with the British, they were collaborating with the Muslim leagues to form government because their chief enemy was the Congress. Secularism is the chief enemy of communalism. You see, so long as secularism survives, communalism cannot grow. That's why they kill Gandhiji. They don't go and kill Jinnah. Jinnah is not their main enemy. Gandhiji is their main enemy. Secular is the main enemy. Do remember that. They happily join hands with Muslim League. Even now, if Muslim communalism grows, they are quite happy because it means Hindu communalism will grow even more. Their main target has been and continues till today to be the secular. That is why the Congress is the main enemy. Rahul Gandhi is the main enemy. Even though he is called a Pappu, why is he the main enemy to them? Because the Congress represents an alternate view. That is why they are the main enemy.
So if we know that the RSS and the Mahasabha, they collaborated with the British against the Indian National Congress, against the national movement itself. So how can they be allowed to claim that they are the sole, they have a monopoly on nationalism and patriotism? How were they allowed to claim monopoly on this?
See, Jawaharlal Nehru, who was an outstanding intellectual, educated. These days, we have to remind you that we can have leaders and prime ministers who are educated, highly educated. Don't go about flaunting non-existent degrees. He had long ago, in the 30s itself, said that minority communalism leads to separatism. Because they're small, they want to be separate. Majority communalism, he says, can easily masquerade as nationalism. Huh? So that's what they're trying to do. They're doing communalism and masquerading as nationalist, while their activity actually destroys the nation. But they create the nationalists. They're trying to occupy the nationalist space, which is the duty of every citizen of the country to deny them, because they are not nationalist. Jawaharlal Nehru had squarely called them anti-national. Communalism, he says, he gave two definitions of communalism. One is that it can masquerade as nationalism. Two, that it is anti-national. And three, that it is the Indian version of fascism.
Yes.
A description he made, more than half a century ago, that it's the Indian version of fascism. Amartya Sen in the 1990s called them communal fascist. You see, people have now begun to accept that because they are witnessing it in front of their eyes, the fascist tendencies. But Nehru had predicted long ago that if we permit this, if we permit their growth, we are permitting the Indian version of fascism. And then he also predicted the end will be the same as what happened to Hitler and Mussolini. But then he asks, at what cost? Do we want to face that cost by allowing these forces to grow?
So, based on our discussion, we know that they constantly try to vilify people like Gandhiji and Nehruji because they represented an alternativism of secularism, of inclusive growth. But we also see that from the RSS there has been a tendency to appropriate figures like Bhagat Singh, Subhash Chandra Bose, or for that matter, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. So I wanted to know if there is anything in their politics, the people that they appropriate in their politics or in their writings, that actually renders them appropriable, or was their politics fundamentally completely antithetical to what the RSS represents today or represented earlier?
Totally. I mean, you cannot find a more secular person than Subhash Bose or Bhagat Singh. Read his writings. I mean, he calls communalism as poisonous as imperialism. He has no doubt about it that communalism is something which is very dangerous. Subhash Bose too. I mean, look at the various commands or the regiments that he forms when he forms the INA. Gandhi Brigade, Nehru Brigade, Azad Brigade. Who are the people who he selects? Who are his closest people? The person with whom, when he died in the air crash, was a Muslim. So there was no question. Even the language he used, he made it an effort to see that it would be something that would not be only Sanskritic Hindi, but use Urdu, so that it was inclusive. So there is no question. They are picking on Bhagat Singh because they are trying to associate Bhagat Singh with violence. So you can try to use Bhagat Singh against Gandhi or Nehru wrongly, because Bhagat Singh, by the end of his life, had come to the Gandhian position that mass movements must be peaceful. Right? His present writings are now available. But they're trying to appropriate. They're trying to pick on Bose because Bose broke away from the Congress. And they said that, we will open the files and find, between conspiracies against Subhash Bose that the Congress was doing so that Nehru could become Prime Minister and things like that. They dug up all the files. Huge mountains were dug up and not even a mouse was found. Nothing. Because there is no truth in it. Nehru and Bose were the closest of friends, like family members. Even today, you go to Bose's house, you will find that there is one room which is called Nehru room. That is where he would go and stay. So these are propaganda. They are using, in a fascist manner, the propaganda machinery to tell lies. So that even Patel, who put 25,000 RSS people in jail, now they are claiming he's their leader. Just because he had differences of opinion with Jawaharlal Nehru on many issues, primarily economic, but other issues. But differences of opinion was what the national movement was built upon. They don't understand this because national movement, the Congress, was not a fascist party. They built Nehru's autobiography, written in the 1930s at the peak of Gandhi's popularity, is a critique of Gandhi. And yet Gandhi says he is my successor. This is what a movement is all about. Great leaders with differences of opinion, publicly stated, debated, and then when a position was taken, they did it jointly. The same was, you read the last writings of Patel and Nehru, and you will see how much confidence they place on each other, despite their differences. After Mahatma died, they said that it is our duty to join hands together to save this country. And what you see, these are petty minds looking back. When petty minds look back at history, they find only pettiness. They cannot even see the grandness of one of the biggest mass movements in world history. That was our Indian national movement.
Absolutely, sir. So, I mean, we know that this appropriation of these icons is a part of a broader program to rewrite, or rather to distort history. And you have yourself spoken about this issue in extensive detail. So I would like you to explain how this falsification of history happens, in particular the falsification of modern Indian history, and what are its implications, how potentially dangerous it can be.
You see, the falsification of history is the core of the communal ideology. That is why they attack history first. If you have to show that the Hindus and Muslims are antagonistic, you have to show that they have been antagonistic since Islam was born. You have to show even Akbar as a tyrant, isn't it? So you have to change history. You cannot say that Hindus and Muslims were able to live for centuries together. Muslim emperors could have their generals, their prime ministers, their major ministers as Hindus. That religion was not the issue. That Akbar could talk of universal religion, Sulh-Kul, and could in his court hold discussions between Hindu priests, Muslim Maulvis, Christian Padris, and atheists. That history they cannot even think of. That's why they have removed the Mughal part. The part where in many ways the greatest phase of our medieval history. Remember, at the end of the Mughal period, when the British come, beginning of the 17th, 18th century, India produced 8 times the GDP of England. 8 times. The Mughal rule was not something which destroyed India. We produced 8 times Britain's GDP, and we produced an amazing multicultural society in literature, in music, in architecture, in poetry. The entire Sufi tradition, the entire Bhakti tradition happens under the Mughals. Your Kabir happens under the Mughals, your Tulsidas happens under the Mughals, your Guru Nanak happens under the Mughals. These are all efforts at bringing religions together. Now that history has to be wiped out. You have to tell a history of where everybody was killing each other. And this effort was made from the very beginning. The RSS has attacked Indian history, or just as the way the British did. The British had to do the same thing, to deny India a nationhood, right? So they did the same thing. After independence, when they were put in jail because of the link with the murder of the Mahatma, as 25,000 RSS people were put in jail. They were released on the condition, written condition, and as is their habit, they say one thing and do the other. They said that we will not indulge in politics. We will only be a cultural organization. You can see how cultural RSS is today. They are not involved in politics. It's only that their prime ministers and their home ministers and their all their ministers happen to be RSS trained and all that, but they are not in politics, right? So And what they did was they put their entire focus on ideological work. They started the Shishu Bharatis, the schools, right? The first was started in 1951 or 52 with in Golwalkar's presence. There's their RSS chief, right? Today they are in 92% of the districts of India. There are RSS schools in 92%. This is not my figures. These are, see the RSS website, the Vidya Bharati. They have their presence like that. So they have systematically, through the school network, tried to reach tender minds, 8, 10-year-old kids, and put poison in their heads. Muslims are like this. Christians are like that. We have written a book on which we have quoted from RSS books, that, wherever Islam goes, rivers of blood flow. You see, with sword in one hand, the Quran in the other, they burn libraries, they destroy temples, they insult mothers and sisters. I mean, look who's saying all this. The ones who destroyed Bhandarkar Library, the ones who destroyed Babri Masjid, the ones who humiliated mothers and sisters in Gujarat, they are the ones who are telling you Muslims are like that, right? But then children are taught this, that Christians are anti-national. They are the reasons for the partition of India. These are in their books. So can you imagine children who are brought up thinking this? When they grow up, they think that if they can eliminate one Muslim, they have done a great nationalist act. So it is a very dangerous thing. This playing with history is not koi baat nahi ji, galat cheez likh di. The wrong history is being taught. It is not that. The history is being weaponized. And it is a dangerous thing to do. It has been done in other parts of the world. Let us learn from them. This was done in Yugoslavia. Some 14th century, conquest by the Muslims over the Christians was suddenly, whipped up. And in the 1990s, there was this massacre of about 8,000 Muslims in Srebrenica. The graves are still there if you go to Srebrenica in Serbia. You will see these graves there, and they've made a museum out of it just to drive home the mindlessness of distorting history. Now we are trying to do the same. Somnath is being 1,000 times brought up. Why? To say that look what Muslims did. Muhammad of Ghazni destroyed the Somnath temple. But so did, this is exactly what was done by every king and queen on both sides, across religions. As Jawaharlal Nehru said, Muhammad of Ghazni was more of a warrior than a religious leader. And then he said that he raised an army in India headed by a general called Tilak, and took that army to the Middle East, to Central Asia, to fight with other Muslim rulers. So where is the Hindu-Muslim in it? Professor Romila Thapar has written a whole book. Your listeners would know of Romila Thapar, one of the greatest historians India has produced. She wanted to investigate what is this bit about Somnath, and she found this amazing story. 150 years after the temple is destroyed. This is destroyed in 1027, some 11th century. That long ago, nearly 1,000 years ago, right? And when it is, she says about 150 years later, the temple is rebuilt. And nowhere in the records is the name of Mahmud of Ghazni mentioned. It is not relevant to the people. Temple destroy ho gaya, phir bana liya. More interesting, 250 years later, a Muslim trader is given the permission to build a mosque in the temple presence, in the property of the temple, with the full support of the temple authorities, the local villagers, the leaders of the current Raja, etc., etc. Where is the Hindu-Muslim enmity? The first time a big thing is made out of Muslim terror on Hindus through Somnath destruction is in the British Parliament in the 19th century. mid 19th century. They bring it up and they say the destruction of the Somnath seared the psyche of the Hindus and a permanent confrontation emerged. Because this is the theory they were trying to build. And it is this imaginary theory that has been picked up and is being promoted today. People are being reminded of Somnath not because of the religiosity. People don't even know what God is there in Somnath. But because it is being used as a measure of showing Muslim atrocity, which was the whole British effort, that we are relieving India from Muslim atrocity. Why the British? Because Muslim atrocity is happening. The theory of Muslim atrocity emerges from the British, which is what is now being promoted by them.
Thank you so much, sir, for this very insightful and enriching discussion. I'm very confident that our audience will find a lot of very interesting and informative information pertaining to history, which will, of course, help them develop a correct understanding, something that does not necessarily toe the line of the regime. So, thank you so much, sir. For
I want to, if you will permit,
Absolutely.
add one more thing, that in the ideology of those who are calling Congress and its leadership, from Gandhi, Nehru till the current ones, as appeasers of the minorities, do remember that by definition, in their analysis, the minorities cannot be Indian. Do not forget this, that their founder thinker, Savarkar, clearly stated who can be an Indian. Those whose Pitri Bhumi and Punya Bhumi are in India. So the Muslims cannot say their Punya Bhumi is in India because Muhammad was not born in India, right? The Punya Bhumi is out there. The Christians cannot say it. It's Jerusalem. So they cannot be, by definition, be Indian, right? So you've made them foreigners by definition. Now this is very important. But to your listeners, one must point out the ridiculousness of this. You see, because any statement you make, you must apply to the world. Now apply this theory to the world. No European, no Frenchman, no Britisher, no Spanish, no Portuguese can claim to be Portuguese or British or French because their Punya Bhumi is in Jerusalem. That means they're not. So it is an absurd. But then this has been argued and continues to be argued today. That how can they be Indian? Their Punya Bhumi is elsewhere. That means the Buddhists in Japan are not Japanese. They're Indian. This is absurd. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.